Do your characters have a big secret you want your audience to keep guessing? My name is Gina. I'm an author, editor, publishing professional. I help you make your writing better. We are going to be talking about red herrings, and I know that I have talked about these before, but this is a very useful tool, and they are very, very common in mysteries, but they can be useful in other genres as well. And I would not be me if I wasn't sending you to watch a How I Met Your Mother episode in order to learn how to do this. And so I want you to go and watch season 2, episode, I believe it is 10, Slap Bet. You don't need to know anything about the show in order to be able to understand this episode. At the very beginning of the episode, one of the characters says that she never goes to malls and she's really super weird about it. And the rest of the gang is like, oh my gosh, why doesn't she go to malls? She's being really super weird about this. And then the rest of the episode is focused on them trying to figure out why she doesn't go to malls, or actually like them doing this behind her back, and the audience is meant to keep guessing. There are a couple of things that you can take away from this episode, so I do want you to go and watch it. It'll take 22 minutes of your time. It is available on both Netflix and on Hulu, and so it's pretty easy to get a hold of. But one, as soon as they know that she doesn't go to malls, one of the characters, her boyfriend in the episode, starts guessing a bunch of reasons, and they are increasingly ridiculous. Some of them sound really reasonable at first, like you got left behind in a mall, you got forgotten in a mall, you got dumped in a mall, things that sound really reasonable that you'd be like, oh, you might associate some bad memories along with going to malls, and that might be why you choose not to go to malls. So he offers up some explanations that seem totally reasonable, but like too reasonable. Like they're too boring, they're too reasonable. They're not going to be the answer to the story here, to the mystery that you're putting in front of your audience. He then also lists some things that are totally and completely ridiculous and far-fetched, and like he got trapped under a boulder in the food court in the mall, right? Like something along those lines where you're like, what? Why? That doesn't happen to anybody. That's ridiculous. They then latch on to two possibilities, both of which are like equally ridiculous. And now the genre matters here because this is a sitcom, and like everything is a little bit ridiculous in a sitcom. That's kind of that's the genre. That's the convention that we are going for. Everything is over the top and a little bit ridiculous. But one of the characters says that she used to do adult films and got recruited in a mall, so she has really bad feelings about it. And the other one says, oh, she got married in a mall. She's anti-marriage. We actually don't know a whole lot about her childhood and her upbringing, but we do know that she talks about this friend who got married in a mall, got married way too young. Now, of those, her boyfriend is in this storyline, remember? One of those, like, neither of those are good, but one of them feels better than the other one, right? Like, he feels like it would be better for her to have gotten married and divorced really young than for her to have been an adult film star previously. And so the audience, being like that the boyfriend is actually the protagonist of this show, the audience latches on to this one storyline that they want it to be that storyline, but the other storyline is looking, I mean, it stays ridiculous the entire time. Like, they don't actually find any real genuine evidence for that other storyline, but it's like, okay, they keep finding evidence that the marriage is not real. So we have these red herrings. The wedding in the mall and the adult film career are both red herrings. They have you ignoring the clues that are right in front of you and instead chasing down these other storylines. And one of them starts off being much more reasonable or much more likely, and the other one seems totally unlikely. And again, they never really find any evidence for the unlikely one, but they do find increasing evidence that the likely one is not true. So they keep disproving the more likely scenario. And then in the end, it turns out that neither of them were right. She was a Tiffany-style teen pop star and sang a song about going to the mall and had to tour malls all across Canada when she was a teenager. So like neither scenario, but like who was gonna guess that? Actually, I guessed that. I knew that like from the beginning, but because who else has that big of a reaction of going to malls, right? But that's unusual. Like, you're always going to have somebody in your audience who's going to guess the answer, and there's always going to be, most people are going to be like, oh my gosh, I never saw that coming. So you're never going to win everybody over. There's always going to be somebody who spoils the game and who guesses your ending. But these are the things that I want you to take away from this. So one, you're going to present a bunch of things that seem really reasonable, but they seem too easy. Two, you're going to present a couple of things that seem totally far-fetched and also really not like they could be the solution because they don't fit the overall narrative. That's the like got trapped under a boulder and embarrassed in the food court, right? So like, yeah, it could work, but that doesn't make a lot of sense. Three, you're going to then present the two things or more, usually two is a good limit, of red herrings. One of them is going to be very plausible, the other one is very implausible. And then you're four going to find a bunch of evidence that keeps disproving the more plausible one. So what this does in your audience's mind is it pushes them towards that very implausible solution that you offered up, even though that's not actually going to be the answer. That's the red herring, but you are pushing them towards that implausible solution because you've only given them two to choose from, and you're disproving one. Little by little, you are chipping away at its credibility. How do you go about picking all of these possible solutions and red herrings that you're going to put in front of people? Brainstorm. Brainstorm with your writing group or with your writing partners, and the first like 5 or 6 solutions that you come up with, those have to be the ones that get dismissed very quickly. Those are the ones that are going to feel too obvious, and instead you're going to dig down into the more ridiculous and the more off the beaten path, the things that don't come up first. Those are the ones that are going to serve as your red herrings, and those are the ones that are actually probably going to serve really well as your secret. If when you are brainstorming with your writing group and you're saying, okay, I need to have my character be keeping a secret from the audience, and your writing group comes up with that secret in the first like 5 or 6 solutions that they come up with, your secret's not very good. Everyone in your audience is going to guess it, and then you're going to be tempted to do a bunch of things that is actually really bad storytelling in order to try to cover up that secret. It means that you have not picked a good secret.